and currently the 50 or so pesantren associated with JI, they are all production nodes, ideological production nodes of Darul Islamism.
The 100,000 odd pesantrens in Indonesia penetrate into the poorest parts of the country. Their popularity lies simply in the failure of the state institutions to provide basic education to the people, many of whom have opted for the more affordable option. And religious boarding schools are providing that vacuum. Although 50 pesantrens have been identified as having established links with the militant networks, it would be erroneous to suggest that pesantrens are responsible for the rise of militant ideas in Indonesia.
So I think it would be wrong for us to oversimplify the phenomenon of the pesantren and to simply assume that all of them teach the same thing. They do not. Two, if we look at the curriculum of the pesantrens, I think the only problem I see is that in many of the pesantrens, the level of education that is given, or the sort of education that is given, may not entirely prepare Indonesian students well enough for the realities of economic and social competition in Indonesia afterwards.
As a category, the pesantren is a neutral institution. So those pesantren associated with JI that are part of the JI milieu, they need to be watched. Not shut down, because you shut down sends a very negative political signal, but monitored. Monitored and watched, and there's a role for the Indonesian moderate Muslim community as well as the government to do something there, something creative there.
Kelompok kecil yang teror menggunakan nama Islam dan pesantren, saya sebagai orang Islam dan orang pesantren, saya juga kecewa. Kami menjadi victim. Itu mengkhianati, menodai. Dan saya sebagai warga negara, rumah Indonesia ini Muslim house. We are free to implement our Islamic teaching. Bahkan membuat Islamic political party, boleh, silakan aja. Makanya, kalau teroris menggunakan kata Islam melawan pemerintah Indonesia, bagi saya ini betul-betul pemahaman yang sempit, yang sesat.
Dean of Sharif Hidayatullah Islamic University in Jakarta, Kamaruddin Hidayat, feels that the pesantren's curriculum needs to be constantly reviewed and updated to adapt to the current needs.
Jadi di pesantren hendaknya lebih dengan sebagai pusat peradaban. Sains, ekonomi, kemudian juga lingkungan hidup, juga civic education. Dan sekarang saya yakin masyarakat juga sudah semakin immune bahwa itu kelompok kecil, splinter group. Maka kemudian dipersempit ruang gerak mereka.
Jadi closing down the pesantren itu, menutup pesantren itu juga bukan menyelesaikan masalah. Misalnya ada ide menutup ngeruki, akan muncul ngeruki gelap gitu loh, black market of ngeruki, yang itu hard to control, kita sendiri tidak bisa mengontrol, yang scatter everywhere. Seperti gelas itu kalau kita pukul, it will burst everywhere, akan kemana-mana. Pukul, lari kemana-mana, dan kita susah mengontrol.
27-year-old Yusuf has just served a 10-year jail sentence for his involvement in terror-related activities. As a teenager, Yusuf went to a secular school. Ironically, that's when he became radicalized. In 2002, he was caught and sentenced to jail for the unlawful possession of explosives and firearms. Yusuf's experience bears testimony to the fact that radicalism can happen even outside the pesantren education system. For many students of Al-Mu'min, this has become their normal routine. Here students are exposed to images of the so-called oppressions of Muslims in some parts of the world. Visual indoctrination is a common method used by radical groups like Jamaah Islamiyah to win over fresh recruits. However, such tactics can be employed beyond the confines of Pesantrens. Yusuf, for example, was not a full-time Pesantren student, but he became radicalized after being exposed to images which depicted the horrors of the Bosnian War.
They will use videos to basically stroke emotion on Muslims about what some injustices in certain part of the world happen on Muslims. So they will call the others because Islam does not differentiate between religion and politics.
Waktu 92 perang Irak, perang Teluk itu saya lihat kan hanya di TV, Pak. Oh seperti ini. Tapi ketika di situ betul, saya termasuk orang yang diincar oleh tentara Filipina untuk dibom sama helikopter, sama pesawat. Ya, jadi itu pengalaman yang 1 minggu pertama ketika saya menganggap kalau memang bumi jihad Moro ini menerima ruh saya, kalau saya meninggal di sana, ya saya tidak bisa kembali ke Indonesia.
After watching the video footage, Yusuf's perception and worldview changed drastically. He became radicalized and decided to join the jihadists and fought alongside the Moro Islamic Liberation Front, or MILF, against the Philippines government. In southern Philippines, he was exposed to the global radical ideology espoused by Al-Qaeda and Jemaah Islamiyah. Yusuf survived the armed forays in southern Philippines and returned to Indonesia, but the bond that he forged with some key JI members while in the Philippines was deep and personal. Upon his return to his homeland, Yusuf was instructed by JI to rent a shop house in Semarang on the pretext that it was for commercial use. In actuality, the house was used to store firearms and other explosives.